BenQ W4100i is a 4K projector designed for home theater use and positions itself as a compelling budget-friendly option with some powerful AI tools. The BenQ 4100i delivers a native 4K Ultra HD 3840 by 2160 resolution and features a high brightness of 3200 ANSI lumens. Its laser light source offers a long lifespan of 20,000 hours in normal mode and up to 30,000 hours in eco mode, paired with a dynamic contrast ratio of 3 million to 1. You get 100% coverage of both the DCI-P3 and Rec. 709 color gamuts. It features comprehensive HDR support, including HDR10, HDR10 Plus, and HLG, and is equipped with 3 HDMI 2.1 inputs, supporting 4K 60, auto low latency mode, and eARC, with only HDMI 3 supporting 4K 120, along with an internal HDMI 2.0B port for its included smart dongle. It also includes a 1.3x zoom and vertical lens shift for easier installation. The built-in Android TV dongle provides access to streaming applications, and everyone's fan favorite 3D support for 3D viewing is a highlight, providing a significant and enjoyable experience with an image that maintains quality even when viewed from an angle. Okay, I'm not going to spend too much time on the operating system because it's exactly the same. You guys have seen it all before. It's Android, TV OS, whatever it's called, Android OS, Android TV. It's the same thing, you know. You've got your apps. This one is not as snappy as some of the other ones, but also the remote, when it's connecting to the projector, sometimes depending on where you point it, it doesn't always react right away. So that's a little bit frustrating, but you know, it's Android. Again, I'm not going to focus too much on that because you've all have seen it. So if you guys have that on your TV or projector, it's pretty much exactly the same across the board on every device. Okay, so if we bring up the menu, we have some different picture modes here. So right now it is on Filmmaker Mode, but you do have HDR10, and then you have HDR AI Cinema, and then there is also a Bright Cinema mode, but I haven't been able to get that to come up very much. So it seems like whenever I play HDR content, even when it shows up and I click on it, it doesn't allow you to actually engage it. So I'm not sure when that actually activates, but most people will probably never use it. So then you have your sound mode, you have cinema, you have music, game, sports, light source mode, you have normal, eco, low dynamic, high dynamic. So we'll hit high dynamic on that. And then you've got your digital image adjustment. You can do 2D keystone, corner fit, mask. You can do top or bottom, left, right, reset mask, fast mode off or on. Not sure what that does, but I just accidentally clicked on. So, oh, I see what you have. ALLM, so auto low latency mode. So maybe that has to do with something with the frame rate. Okay, so then you have those two. You know, if you're gaming, you're probably gonna have that on. Fast mode. Again, I'm not sure exactly what that does, but we'll leave it on for now. You have HDR brightness, you have 1, 2, 0. You can go all the way up to -2. If you hit information, you get your picture mode information, detected resolution, light source mode, light source usage, 3D format, firmware version, color system, service code, and this does support 3D. And then you have an edit where you can, I guess, move or show or hide different things. Then you have your advanced menu, so you can go in here and fine tune the different settings under each picture mode. You've got your fast mode, brightness, contrast, color, tint, sharpness, advanced colors. You've got color temperature tuning, advanced color temperature tuning, color management, wide color gamut, Cinemaster, your light source, HDR brightness. So pretty much some of the same settings that you can get. This one is a little bit more if you actually click in the menu. Audio, you can change the sound mode. You can change the audio output from internal to SPDIF, audio return plus, 3.5mm jack. Get your mute and your volume. Display, you can set the aspect ratio. You've got auto source search, You can rename the source. You've got your 3D, so you can turn 3D mode on or off, 3D sync, invert. HDMI settings, you can change your HDMI format, HDMI equalizer, HDMI EDID. Then you've got your power, projector power on by device, device power off by projector. And then you could turn on 24p True Cinema. Installation, you can do your projection position, 2D keystone, all your stuff that you're familiar with. And then you've got some other stuff here that, you know, it's not really pertinent to the review. So those are your settings. Let's get into the actual video review of this projector. So if we take a look at a super colorful, super vibrant image with Super Mario Brothers, Filmmaker Mode seems to have the lowest contrast and a slightly flatter look. Colors appear the most natural and slightly muted compared to the other two. Highlights, like on Peach's dress or Mario's hat, appear well controlled, preserving detail without blowing out. HDR AI Cinema exhibits the highest contrast and most pop in the image. Colors look the most vibrant and saturated. The overall image is richer and more punchy. Highlights are visibly brighter and punchier, making the image look more immediately dazzling. So I think the goal of HDR AI Cinema is likely an enhanced dynamic look, which is achieved through AI processing, prioritizing the wow factor. HDR10 shows a good balance, noticeably higher contrast than Filmmaker Mode, but less aggressive than HDR AI Cinema. Colors are vibrant, more saturated than Filmmaker Mode, but retain a slightly more natural tone than the AI Cinema mode. Highlights are brighter, but generally retain good detail, offering a standard, high-quality HDR look. So I'd have to say that Filmmaker Mode is the baseline for accuracy. It's the most subdued with lower contrast and natural colors, which aims to preserve the original film look. HDR AI Cinema is the most dramatic. It boosts both contrast and saturation significantly, resulting in a very punchy, eye-catching image with the brightest highlights. However, I think this mode sacrifices some subtlety for maximum visual impact. HDR10 seems to offer a middle ground. It's a clear upgrade in vividness and contrast over Filmmaker Mode, but avoids the oversaturated look of the AI Cinema mode. For a scene like Alpha, which relies on dramatic lighting, if you prioritize the most dramatic, punchy image and blinding bright highlights, the HDR AI Cinema mode is the clear choice. But be aware you are losing significant detail in the darkest shadows and potentially in the brightest highlights. If you prioritize cinematic accuracy and detail preservation, especially in the shadows and the textures, then I would say Filmmaker Mode is delivering the most faithful image here. And then the HDR10 mode offers a fantastic best of both worlds approach, which gives you much of the high contrast drama and brightness of HDR without the aggressive detail loss of the AI enhanced profile. So if we focus in on skin tones and facial illumination. So Filmmaker Mode, the skin tones are the warmest and most natural. And, it kind of seems like they're bathed in a soft orange light from the fire, which reflects accurate color calibration. With HDR AI Cinema, the subject's faces are often brightest and most sharply contrasted. The extreme highlights from the fire can make their skin look slightly over illuminated or even cooler in the shadows. HDR10 provides a vibrant and clear illumination of the faces. The fire's glow is strong, giving the skin a healthy, warm saturation without the aggressive punch of the AI mode. So for the most accurate and subtle look, Filmmaker Mode handles the fire highlights with the most control and preserves the maximum detail in the surrounding darkness, which delivers a cinematic look. For the most dramatic and intense look, then HDR AI Cinema provides the brightest fire, which is often at the expense of detail, and then the deepest, inkiest shadows, which result in a stark, high impact image. And then the HDR10 profile once again offers a premium balance, which gives you much of the fire's vivid punch without blowing out highlights or crushing as much shadow detail as the AI mode. So this scene is dominated by the flickering light of a campfire, highlighting how each profile handles extreme darkness and bright localized light sources. So for the Filmmaker mode, the fire's bright core is well controlled, showing clear detail within the brightest flames, and there's no excessive blooming. The color is a deep natural amber orange, and the light casts a gentle but warm illumination on the surrounding subjects. With HDR AI Cinema, the fire is the hottest and most aggressive highlight. The bright core often appears a little blown out to pure white, which loses detail in the flames, but the color is very bright, almost yellow-white, creating an intense high-impact glow that significantly brightens the subjects. HDR10 has strong vivid highlights that is brighter than Filmmaker mode but retains more detail in the flames than the AI Cinema profile. The color is a vibrant, slightly punchier orange than Filmmaker mode, which offers a great balance of vivid color and controlled brightness. The Filmmaker mode has the lowest overall contrast, and this preserves the most detail in the dark clothing and the faces, which allows you to discern subtle texture in the shadows. The people in the background are most visible and naturally lit by the fire's glow, which is going to give you, or maintains a cinematic moody feel without crushing blacks. HDR AI Cinema has the highest contrast. The deep shadows aggressively recede into black, creating a dramatic but often detail-crushing look. The background is almost completely black and the figures are starkly contrasted against the fire, losing detail in their dark clothing and hair. And HDR10 has the highest contrast, but more balanced than AI Cinema. So the blacks are deep, but they still reveal texture and contour on the subjects' faces and clothing under the fire's light. The subjects are clearly visible, with the scene offering a strong atmospheric low light picture that is darker than Filmmaker mode but brighter than AI Cinema. So here, for the most accurate and subtle look, Filmmaker mode handles the fire highlights with the most control and preserves the maximum detail in the surrounding darkness, delivering that cinematic look. For the most dramatic and intense look, HDR AI Cinema provides the brightest fire, often at the expense of detail and the deepest, inkiest shadows, resulting in a stark, high-impact image. The HDR10 profile once again offers a premium balance, giving you much of the fire's vivid punch without blowing out the highlights or crushing as much shadow detail as the AI mode. Now, if we move on to some high-nit content, so we're talking 1000 nits, 2000 nits, and 10,000 nits. So for 1000 nits, we see that the Filmmaker mode tone mapping is the most respectful to the 1000 nit source data. So it's prioritizing the preservation of detail in the snow and the horse's dark fur, which makes it the best choice for those who want that value with Filmmaker intent. The HDR AI Cinema's tone mapping aggressively pushes the display's limits, which results in the brightest snow and highest contrast, but it's the least accurate and may lead to noticeable loss of detail or clipping in the brightest and darkest areas. HDR10 delivers a compelling image that is a good middle ground. It's a vibrant and dynamic image which leverages the display's HDR capabilities without the extreme processing and detail loss of the AI mode. However, with 2000 nits, the Filmmaker mode is a bit of a downgrade. So the bright snow, it looks washed out, and the horses pretty much lose some of their texture. And it even looks dimmer, probably because it isn't artificially boosting the pixels. Now, what's interesting is that the HDR AI Cinema looks impressive, and I mean impressive by how much snow texture is preserved and how visible the background is and how accurate the horses' coats look. I wouldn't have expected the HDR AI Cinema to look better than the Filmmaker mode, but it does. It's really weird, but also very impressive. Kind of doesn't make sense to me because the Filmmaker mode is supposed to be the most accurate, preserving the director's intent. But this was shocking when I was looking at it. And then HDR10, it's probably going to be like the sweet spot for most viewers. It provides the brightness people expect from a 3200 lumen projector while maintaining a much more respectful tone map than the AI and Filmmaker modes. Now, when we get to 10,000 nits, this was the most interesting for me to look at. So when dealing with the extreme 10,000 nit content, the Filmmaker mode once again is shockingly not the most accurate here. The bright highlights look completely flat. They look like flat white blobs, and it's just extremely clipped, and you lose so much detail in the grass in the foreground. The HDR AI Cinema shines yet again. Now, while there is still some clipping, it shows off the raw brightness of the panel, but it does so by breaking the rules for an AI mode because it does a surprisingly good job of maintaining detail in the foreground and background. HDR10 is also clipped, but also surprisingly does a better job than Filmmaker Mode. Again, weird, but it does a better job than the Filmmaker Mode because it delivers a slightly brighter, punchier HDR experience while remaining much more respectful of the actual image data than the AI enhanced profile. The BenQ 4100i stands out for its strong HDR performance relative to its cost, making it an excellent value proposition for those looking for a capable 4K home theater projector. The BenQ 4100i is a fantastic value proposition that punches well above its weight, particularly in its HDR performance. Its ability to completely handle 1000, 2000 nit, and even 10,000 nit content surprisingly well without an external device is a major selling point. And while it may not have the insane sharpness or black levels of something like a Valerian, it provides a very good and accurate image. The inclusion of 3D support is also a bonus for enthusiasts. So for a home theater enthusiast on a budget who wants great HDR and 3D, the BenQ 4100i is a compelling choice.